Okay, so here we have the path for the Temple of Hate. Now this one was definitely one of the most path-based songs, I would say. It's pretty easy to FC compared to the rest of Pool 2, and as a result of that, you know, double FCs were very possible, and did happen, and scores did come down to the wire in this song, even for me. I say even, but, you know. So yeah, we'll get into the path for it right now. This second seems like the best time to do it. We start off with activation 1, fittingly, and we have this easy whammy, pretty micro whammy here, but the main part of this activation that's annoying is this sustain that leads into the activation right here. So it's happened many times before where we have a whammy followed by the activation, so I do what I normally do, and I went for the tilt act after the sustain. Now this is a really long sustain, so I wanted to whammy as much of it as possible to get obviously as much star power. Ideally close to full bar, maybe even full bar, although probably not full bar, because if I got full bar I would be able to stop whammying. So yeah, we'd be approaching full bar after this measure, and just going for the tilt act. There's nothing else to say there really, just trying to tilt as close to this note as possible, because the activation ends over a sustain, so we'll be missing out on 3 points, hundreds of points, as opposed to, you know, if we activate right here, that's 600 points gone. We're not getting that much from just sustain. So yeah, trying to tilt as quick as possible here. The worst activation in the song, which is good. Next, we actually hold on for quite a long time. This song is like 5 minutes long, but only has 4 activations. A bit like Waves. Strange in that way. So yeah, long sustain, easy whammy, easy phrase, more easy whammy. And our next activation says right here, I opted to try and activate on the phrase, but once again this is a tilt act I used. So the reason for this time it being a tilt act is because it's during a tapping section, and I tap these notes. They aren't overly fast, but just for consistency's sake I tapped them. So yeah, I went for the tilting while tapping method right here. Easy overlap. Ideally end around here. So yeah, nothing else really to say there. Pretty self-explanatory. Next activation. So actually I'll sum this up real quick first. We got the first 2 activations are dealing with tilting. The last 2 activations are dealing with remembering where they are. So there's actually no free activation in this song, I would say, but none of them are overly bad at least. So the third phrase, more easy whammy, another easy whammy, and then we have this seemingly arbitrary part in the middle of the string section, I guess it is. And overall not the most valuable activation, but still valuable enough. So the way I remember this, if we count the measures, was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we activate on the first note of the 6th. So that's one way of remembering it. It's this blue note, it's the 6th measure from where we start. Otherwise I was just waiting for these GRYB quads to show up again after this pattern. So right here it's 2 measures of this, and then you activate as soon as it starts switching to the red, yellow, blue, orange quads instead. So 2 ways of remembering that right here, and it's a perfect act because it ends right here, if you can squeeze that note in. Okay, so next and final activation, we have some easy whammies again, long whammies, definitely get as much as we can out of these, and then our last phrase actually has no whammy for once. And then remembering exactly where this is, it's not that hard, but still seemingly like it's in the middle of nowhere. So the way how I was remembering this, we have the first cycle which goes which obviously ends right here. 218 is one cycle, 222 is the start of a new cycle. So you see this part where it's an orange note followed by the double red. You can identify that as quick as possible, and then it's the second time that happens we activate on the orange note. So yeah, orange followed by 2 reds, quick reds should I say. That's our activation point, and it's in the second cycle. So yeah, that's the activation, and ideally it will end right here, squeezing in this last yellow note. If we squeeze the orange, that is. If we don't squeeze in the orange at the beginning, we're not squeezing this. We're squeezing this one in. If we're not squeezing this one, we're squeezing the orange in. But either way, it's better to just squeeze both in, really. And yeah, that's the path for Temple of Hate. It says Temple of Hate. It says right here 557k. Ideally on an FC, you'll be getting about 555. So yeah, not far off optimal at all. These activations just I didn't stray from them at all really. Besides the second one, where I tried to do it earlier by a couple of notes. But even then, it could incidentally land on this note because it's a tilt act. So yeah, 555k, only 2k off optimal. Pretty good. Now it's very possible to get outpathed in this song, but that's just the way it was. I didn't like picking this song. The only reason I ever picked it was because I wanted to FC all 10 songs of Pool 2. It was a bit like Tuck My Tail. And I actually did end up getting to do this one, but I never did FC Dads, so that was the only missing one for me. But yeah, that is that, and we'll move on to the notes of Temple of Hate now.
Okay, so now we're going to take what will essentially be a brief look at the notes of Temple of Hate. Now, there really isn't going to be too much to talk about this one because the vast majority of the song is just simple, and all we're going to talk about is the solo and one other small thing. So, we'll talk about the main part of the solo, which is this first. And this is just basic standard tapping, just tapping the highest note, and that's really simple. I'm sure people were one-handing this, but for me it's just more consistent, and that's the name of the game, right? So our tilt act is right there. Then it transitions to this a little bit harder pattern. Into these descending triplets. So I can get rid of solo 1A immediately because it's simple. So I'm standard tapping this all in the first position, but the notes I'm tapping are the highest note and the note of the, I guess, zig underneath that. So orange, blue here, orange, blue here. Just anchoring the lowest note of the triangle. So if you don't know what a triangle is, I mean, well, obviously everyone knows what a triangle is, but in terms of this game, so you see you have the yellow, orange, yellow there. It's a triangle of notes. So yeah, anchoring the yellow and tapping the orange, and then you have, right after that, you have a red, yellow, red triangle. And so what I'll be doing, I'll be anchoring the red and tapping the yellow, and pulling off to the red. And that's basically how this section works. After both triangles you get an ascending trip and a zig in between, but the zigs are obviously self-explanatory. And I guess the real difficulty is just being able to shift into every type of quad zig there is. Especially this one here, the GRBOs. Okay. So that's how that tapping bit works. And as far as the trips at the end are concerned, it's probably not the best method to standard tap them, but that's just what I do, just to keep my flow, I guess. Because it's pretty easy for your fingers to get in the way when you're standard tapping descending trips, so it's perfectly easy to just one-hand them, but for me I was standard tapping them. And probably elbow strumming this last screen. But not necessarily, so that was just either way. Okay, so that's solo 1. Solo bridge, there's nothing a note, and solo 2 there really isn't much of a note either. Most of it is just one-handed, just preparing yourself for somewhat awkward fretting. But all of this is just easily one-handed. It's nothing like the superheroes solo where that it makes sense to tap. This stuff, there is no reason to tap. Except right here, I'll get ready to tap. This last bit, which is the same pattern as the start of solo 1A. And after the last one there, of the blues, get ready to whammy that last sustain. So I guess we'll look at 2C again. So when we hear this chromatic sounding bit, I'm ready to tap. Stop. Whammy. I guess I'll include the note after so you can see the whammy. Okay. And that's the solo, so I'll do the full solo just so you can see. Because why not? All in first position. All one-handed. There is a little mini trill there, but it's not even particularly fast. Getting ready to tap as soon as this hammer-on phrase comes up. Stop. Then the whammy would be there, but I didn't select the section. Okay, so that's the solo covered. And there's one other thing that's really short that I'll look at really quick, and that's this thing here. So basically the entire phrase, like set of notes in this part, normally goes from a chord to a single note, but there's one instance where it doesn't. And it's definitely, it was worth for me to remember that this little da-da-da at the top was there. And in that case we're just holding orange and hitting the notes below. So this was just one little thing that if you forgot it was there, it could screw you over. But not particularly hard to hit. And that is it for the Temple of Hate. Now, it was one of the easiest songs in either pool, I would think. I think people would agree with me. And it was basically a pathing test more than anything, and a squeeze off, if you would. But yeah, that's that, and we'll do another song now. Okay, so that was a Templar hit, 555, 990. So actually about 1k off optimal, because optimal is like 557 or 48 or something like that. So this is a particularly good run. And I think people, at least someone hit 556 in the tournament. Maybe it was Moose, maybe it was Nick. I'm not too sure. But yeah, a good run, all things considered. So yeah, that is the end of Pool 2. So we'll be moving swiftly on to Pool 3, which has the most interesting things, the most interesting songs. And that starts off with Track on Fire. So we will see you there. But for now, farewell.